Hello, human. One of the most common questions about kefir grains is whether they breathe. And to answer it properly, we first need to clarify what breathing actually means. Because many people imagine breathing as lungs, oxygen going in and out, and that doesn't apply here. Kefir grains do not breathe like humans. They don't have lungs, and they don't need to inhale oxygen to live. They are a community of bacteria and yeasts, and these microorganisms have very different ways of obtaining energy. Some kefir bacteria are anaerobic, meaning they don't need oxygen to survive. Others are facultative, meaning they can live with or without oxygen. Yeasts can also adapt to both conditions. That's one of the reasons kefir is so resilient. When you ferment kefir in a jar, the process happens mainly without oxygen. The microorganisms get energy by breaking down sugars, not by breathing air. That process is called fermentation, and it's completely different from the kind of respiration humans use. During fermentation, kefir grains produce gases like carbon dioxide. That gas is not a sign of breathing. It's a byproduct of metabolism. It's evidence that the microorganisms are active and transforming the milk. That's why pressure can build up in the jar, not because the grains need air, but because they are releasing gas. Here's where the confusion starts. People assume that if something breathes, it needs air. In reality, what kefir grains need is food. Milk is their energy source. Oxygen is not the main factor. To understand this better, we need to talk about how oxygen can influence kefir, but not in the way most people think. Even though kefir grains don't need oxygen to live, that doesn't mean oxygen is irrelevant. Some of the yeasts present in kefir can change their behavior, depending on whether oxygen is present or not. With oxygen, they tend to produce less alcohol. Without oxygen, they usually produce more ethanol and more gas. This does not mean they breathe air. It means they adjust their metabolism to the environment. Oxygen changes the type of fermentation, not the survival of the colony itself. That's why can behave slightly differently, depending on whether you use it very tightly, sealed jar, or one with a loose lid. It's not that they die without air. It's that the balance between bacteria and yeasts shifts a bit. Here's an important point. Sealing the jar completely does not kill kefir grains. What can cause problems is excessive pressure buildup or a prolonged imbalance, not the absence of oxygen itself. In fact, many traditional fermentations happen under almost anaerobic conditions. Kefir is no exception. Kefir grains are designed to live in environments where oxygen is scarce. That's why they survive inside milk, inside their biofilm, and inside closed jars. Confusing respiration with fermentation is one of the most common mistakes. Kefir grains don't breathe air. They transform food. So, do kefir grains breathe? Not in the human sense of the word. They live, feed, produce energy, and release byproducts. But they do it through fermentation. The gas you see isn't oxygen being exhaled. It's carbon dioxide produced during sugar metabolism. Understanding this removes a lot of unnecessary fear. You don't need to give them air. You don't need to uncover the jar and panic. You don't need to shake it so they can breathe. What they do need is stability, enough food, reasonable timing, and a coherent environment. Oxygen only adjusts the type of fermentation. It doesn't decide whether they live or die. Many problems blamed on lack of air are actually issues with time, temperature, or grain to milk ratio. Air often becomes the scapegoat. When you understand how kefir grains obtain energy, everything becomes simpler. You stop projecting human processes onto organisms that work in a completely different way. Kefir grains don't breathe, they ferment. And as long as they have food and a reasonable environment, that's exactly what they'll keep doing. Follow me.